Hey, today we're making travesseiros, which is pillows in Portuguese. This is another dessert that is from the town of Sintra. It was developed in the pastry shop called Periquita, which was established in 1862. The pastry shop was owned by Mario Santos and Constancia Gomes. The name Periquita was the nickname for Constancia given by King Carlos because of her stature. She was a small lady. For years they made queijadas there, but it wasn't until about the 1940s that Constancia's daughter developed this recipe for pillows, travesseiros. So this recipe is very specific to that pastry shop Periquita, but you'll see it throughout Portugal. So take a trip to Sintra. It's a beautiful town, only about 30 minutes from Lisbon, beautiful castles, and some great pastry shops. We're going to begin with our filling because you want it to cool down before putting it into the puff pastry. So I'll add a half cup of water. 1.5 cups of granulated sugar. And now you want to let this sugar come to a boil, and once it reaches a boil, turn it low and let it continue to boil for about 2 minutes. You just want to be sure that the sugar crystals are thoroughly dissolved. To the filling, I'm going to add a 1/4 teaspoon of salt and about 1/2 teaspoon of ground up cinnamon. If you have a thermometer, you want to bring this sugar mixture up to about 220 degrees Fahrenheit. So once your sugar gets to about 120 or has been boiling for about 3 minutes, you want to take it off the heat and let it cool down for probably 5 or 10 minutes before we temper in the eggs. Because at this temperature right now, you would cook your eggs if you mixed them together too quickly. This is a laminated pastry dough, which means flour was mixed with water, made into a dough. A big block of butter was put in the middle. Then it was rolled out, folded, rolled out, folded, rolled out, folded many times. And so there's many layers of butter, flour, butter, flour, butter, flour. And what happens is when it goes into a really hot oven, that steam in between the layers makes the pastry puff up and flake. So really important, a key pro tip on puff pastry is to use it cold. The sugar mixture has been cooling for about 10 minutes. You can see the temperature dropped below 120, so it's at 115. Eggs cook or denature around 150 degrees, so we're below that point, which is good. It's always a good idea to temper your egg when mixing egg yolks, to temper it into hot liquid, especially if you're not using a thermometer. So just add a little bit of this hot sugar mixture, or I should say warm sugar mixture in here, maybe about a 1/4 cup to a 1/2 cup of it. And now that it's tempered, we can combine the two. The next step is to mix in the almond flour. So just dump that in. And over low or medium-low heat, you want to bring this up until it just starts to boil. If you have a thermometer, you would want to bring it up to about 175 degrees Fahrenheit. And this process here, you do want to kind of constantly be stirring, especially as it gets close to a boil. So if you have a thermometer, once it gets above 150, turn your temperature to low and just keep on stirring in until it gets to 180, or if you don't have a thermometer, let it come to a light boil and let it simmer for maybe 1 minute after it's come to a boil over very low heat. The Portuguese love their egg yolks and sugar. This is similar to the filling that's in the pastry de Santa Clara. Check out that video. And also one of my favorite pastries, the Portugal. And really the big difference in these pastries is the shell. This has a puff pastry. The Portugal has basically a phyllo dough pastry. And the pastry de Santa Clara kind of has a shortbread pastry crust. Very similar. Take it off the fire, and you want to let this cool down for probably at least 30 minutes, and preferably in the refrigerator. You even put it in your freezer until it gets down to at least room temperature or refrigerator temperature. You'll notice it'll get thicker, but the main reason we do that is because you do not want to put this hot filling or warm filling on top of your pastry dough, because you don't want it liquefying and turn into melted butter, because butter's about 20% water, so you don't want to have that steam seep into the dough. You want it to stay in its individual layer. That way, when you put it in a hot oven, you get that nice puff, that nice steam effect in between all the layers that makes it really flaky. So you can see that's, this is still really hot, about 180 degrees, but that's about how thick it is. I'm not in a big hurry, but if you were in a hurry and you wanted to really get this chilled down quickly, what I would do is pour this like in either a metal bowl or glass bowl, then put it into another bigger bowl that has ice water in it, then cool it until it reaches like 70 to 50 degrees Fahrenheit until it gets really cool. All right, you're going to need 2 boxes of puff pastry. Take out from the refrigerator what you're going to work with immediately. The other thing we'll do is put a little bit of flour on our work surface. And now with a sharp knife, you want to cut these into 4 squares. You can see this is, I don't know, maybe 1/8 of an inch thick. Usually you don't want to roll it out, at least not this style of Pepperidge Farm puff pastry. If you made your own at home, which I did for the staged and not the video, if you want to make it from scratch, you want to roll it out to about 1/8 of an inch. And here's my filling. You can see how much thicker it is once it cooled down. It's probably been cooling down for about 20 minutes. So you don't want to overfill it. Either with a brush, you could do it with your finger. You want to wet the edges, just helps it stick a little better. Beat 1 egg and then brush the edges with that beaten egg. And that beaten egg acts almost as a binder, as a glue to even hold down the puff pastry edges together so you won't get any leaking from the filling as it's puffing up in the oven. So you can see the filling, there's probably about a 1/2 inch gap around the puff pastry. So we'll fold that over, press that together, press this side together. And as I make these, I will put them in the refrigerator. For this size filling, which is about, I'm guessing this is about 4 inches by 4 inches square, I'm putting probably just a little over a tablespoon. Then fold that over, press it down a bit. The filling goes on like not directly in the middle, about 1/3 of the pastry, and then you fold it over completely. When I cook puff pastry, especially when the filling is already cooked like this filling is, I like to cook it in a really hot oven because I want to try to get the most steam I can in those first few minutes to allow it to really get a good puff. So I am going to put it in an oven that is 500 degrees Fahrenheit, 260 Celsius. But then immediately after I close the door, I'm going to immediately drop the temperature to 450 degrees Fahrenheit or 230 degrees Celsius. Basically just want to get a nice golden color on the puff pastry. While your oven is preheating, it should take at least 15 minutes. Leave the pillows in your refrigerator so they stay nice and chilled. So I cooked my pillows for about 25 minutes, and you want them to be a really rich golden color. You don't want them to be pale golden, because the more golden they are, you want to err on that side. It's just going to make the dough more flaky. So I melted about 2 tablespoons of butter. I'm going to brush the pastries and then dust with granulated sugar. You want to let them cool off for at least like 5 minutes before you do this. And the only reason you're brushing with butter is to help the sugar stick. I really hope you get a chance to visit Sintra and try these in person at Periquita, but if you don't, give them a try at home. Thanks for joining me. Now go cook for somebody you love. Delicious.